All right. Good morning. So today, as promised, we're going to begin prepping files for printing. We're Nathaniel, Josh, Nathaniel. Thank you. We're going to start building a portfolio of our work, and so that'll be a physical portfolio. So we need to know how to print stuff. And typically, even if you submit files electronically, you usually convert it to PDF so others can read them as they would if they were printed anyway. So it's pretty much the same process. So we're going to start just by opening our millimeter template. And in CAD, we have two different what they call spaces to work in. And up to this point in the class, we have been working in our what we call model space. This is just where we do all of our designing. And when we actually go to output to PDF or paper, we work in something called paper space, which CAD organizes in different layouts. And the way we get to that is looking at our bar at the bottom of our screen. While all of our other tools are here, we have our model or paper space. And when we click on that, we see we have a few different options here. So if we have multiple drawings open, those are listed here. Right now, we're in our model space. Underneath that, it says Layout 1, which is kind of our first layout. And underneath that is our Show Drawings and Layouts. So let's click on Show Drawings and Layouts. And you can see here we have our model space, which has our template in it. And then we have this white, what's basically our sheet of paper here that is listed as Layout 1. So the way I usually like to organize my layouts is usually by the size of paper that it is. If you get into more complex drawings, say you're designing a house or something, maybe you'll have multiple layouts for different layers of plumbing or electrical, things like that for different people. But for the most part, we'll probably just organize this by the size of paper. So clicking on our layout will bring us to our that particular layout. And if you right-click on that, we have kind of our typical editing options. We can either rename this. So I'm going to start by renaming this 8.5 by 11. So 8.5 by 11 is the size of paper that I'm going to set this up to print to, which is the size that we have in our printer. And you can also duplicate it, you can delete it, you can create a new layout, and that's how we'll focus on it. Yeah, so I'll do that again here. So I've got my layout 1, I'm going to right click, I'm going to hit rename, and I'm just going to go 8.5 by 11. So 8.5 by 11 is standard, we call letter size paper. And just hit enter to save that. So now it's showing me a piece of paper. We'll verify that that is in fact 8.5 by 11 in a moment here, but I just want to stress here that we still have our model space, which has our drawing, our template on it so far, and then our paper. Then I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Page Setup Manager. So File, Page Setup Manager, this is where we will edit the parameters of this layout. And right now it's currently set to 8.5 by 11, which is our default, but we'll go through here and click on Edit. And so here it's asking me to verify my printer. So for now, this should be the, I kind of have a weird one, but you probably have the maybe CP4025, I think that's what yours says. And then our paper size should be US letter.
So many options for US letter.
There are a lot of options for US letter. Which options do you have?
Manual front, manual rear, borderless, manual size, manual rear.
What printer do you have selected? Do you have any others?
Or there's E104. The CP.
Yeah, I don't have any.
Yeah, do the E104 one. The
I still
CP
have all those
4025.
options. US.
So anyway, US letter should get us what we want.
Do you want manual rear sheet feeder, borderless, retain size, borderless auto expand, borderless auto expand rear, rear borderless retain size, or manual front?
None of those.
Can you take a step back once?
Sure.
Should I do a custom size?
I'll go back 2 here. So say we're looking at our layout here. We want to modify this.
Wait, why?
We're going to go to our page setup manager. We're clicking on the layout that we want to modify, which in this case is our 8.5 by 11. I'm clicking edit. We're selecting our printer, which I think all of you should have this
I don't have that one.
AHS. What do you have?
HP 4025.
All right, that'll work.
But that gives you all the wrong layout.
Sounds like you have a different. Sounds like you have a different driver than I do. NA letter.
There's no US.
There's US, but they're all like complicated.
Right.
It's great.
Try it. NA letter. See what happens.
Should I do NA letter or NA legal?
So letter is 8.5 by 11. Legal is 8.5 by 14. So that's a different
I'll
size.
do NA letter.
So if you say letter, all the other options for letter really have to do with the border of your document. So our printer doesn't have the capability of actually printing to the edge of the paper. So those different options are just for different border printing. But for now, we'll just go with US letter. And nothing else. So everything else should be listed the way it is listed here on my screen, which should be our default settings here. All right, now we're going to go back and we're going to go to our model space. And I'm just going to draw I'm going to draw a circle in my border layer just so everybody can see it here. Good morning, Jackson. So, say that's my whole document here. I'm the top view of a telephone pole. And this is what I want to print. So I say, all right, I'm all ready to print. Let's go see how it looks here. And I go to my model space. Well, it's still blank. So what's up with that? So what we need to do is we need to, what we call, cut a viewport. So a viewport, think of it as just a window into our model space. In order to make a viewport, the command is mview. For make viewport. And now we can, I'm just going to draw a rectangle here, and that's going to create my window into my model space.
Wow.
So they go, okay, this looks great, but let's say my telephone pole is not really this size. It's actually much smaller in size. So there's my telephone pole. It's kind of teeny, and in my viewport, I want more detail on here. I want people to really see its size here. So I think, oh, okay, well, I just need to zoom in. So what I can do is I can set the scale of my viewport simply by double-clicking inside my viewport here. And when you have double-clicked inside your viewport, you'll know that you're inside your viewport because you'll get a much bolder line around the perimeter of your viewport. So when I double-click outside of my viewport, I get my typical thin line. When I click on the edge of my viewport, I get this kind of dotted line. So now I can grab it and make changes that way. Or if I double-click inside my viewport, now I'm editing inside my viewport. And I can just zoom in here on my circle, make it as large as I want. And it's telling me in this viewport scale on our toolbar here at the bottom, it's letting me know the scale that I'm currently in. So I'm going to set this to 1 to 1. That's a nice scale here. So this is the actual size of my circle. I just clicked on it. You click on your scale here. You have all these different types of scales. And this really is AutoCAD's biggest strength and what made it so popular from the very beginning, which it had an amazing ability of actually printing things to scale. And that sounds pretty straightforward nowadays, but at the time that was an amazing thing. And so it was very difficult for printers to actually, or just software to actually generate documents that were perfectly to scale. So I could take something and say, you know, 1 inch equals 1,000 feet, and it would print perfectly. So if I took my ruler and held it up to the paper, 1 inch would actually equal 1,000 feet, which is pretty critical. So this looks great. The only problem is my template has disappeared. Right? Remember our pretty template? I know. So that's no good. So what we want to do is we want to take our template and we want to make our template part of our actual paper space and then have our viewport inside of our template. So I'm going to start by just deleting my viewport that I created. So I double clicked outside my viewport. So I was no longer editing in it, and I clicked right on the edge of my viewport. So you got to first double click outside your viewport so you're no longer editing inside your viewport. And then you won't get that solid black line here. I'm going to edit out of that, and then I'm going to just click once right on the edge of my viewport. I get that dotted line, and then I'm going to hit delete, and that will delete my viewport. And I'm going to go back to my model space. I'm going to delete my circle for now. I'm going to select everything in my model space. So I did a Command A, and then I'll do a Command X to cut it. So that's now copied to my clipboard. And now I'm going to go back to my paper space, and I'm going to do a Command V to paste. And I'm going to paste it right in my corner here.
No.
Okay. So now my template is pasted in my paper space. But as you can see, we have one issue here, and that's that our template is way too big. So we need to scale it. And according to the assignment here, we need to scale it to 250 across. So I'm going to go Z enter and E enter. That'll zoom out to everything so I can see my entire template. And here's my paper. So again, I'm going to select everything. I'm going to run my scale command. And then my base point is going to be my corner point, my left bottom corner that I placed on my paper space. And then I know that I want to have my bottom edge here be 250. So I'm going to hit R for reference. And I'm going to select that bottom dimension here because that's what I want to change. So now as I move my mouse, we can see my template is now being resized based on the bottom line there, and we're going to change that to 250. That didn't work at all.
That didn't work for me either.
Okay, here's our problem. So it's 250 millimeters is our problem, and I have my paper space set up to inches. So to show you how to correct that, this will just be for our millimeter template. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to Page Setup Manager. I'm editing our 8.5 by 11 layout here. And 1 unit which in this case we are doing 250. I want 1 unit to equal 1 millimeter, not 1 inch. So when I said 250, it was actually creating it at 250 inches. We want to set it to 250 millimeters. Okay. And I'm just going to check this one more time. Scale. Select my base point. Hitting R for reference. Oops. Scale. Oh, select all my objects here. Base points. Punch in there. Yeah. All right.
Which is the part that you want to be 250?
This width here, just along the side. So if I dimension this, it should be 250.
Doesn't work for us.
What happens?
It just stays the exact same size.
Did you reset your paper space to 1 inch should equal 1 millimeter? Or sorry, 1 unit should equal 1 millimeter? All right, so I know it's a little confusing, so I'm going to go over it one more time. What I need to do is I just let CAD know that I am working with millimeters in this paper space. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to Page Setup Manager. I'm editing this layout here. So I'm clicking on Edit. And then it's this scale section right here that is critical. So the scale should be set to 1:1, and it's 1 millimeter equals 1 unit. That work for you now, Josh?
Yeah, I had it set at 1 millimeter, but
Like for me, it doesn't show me US letter or any of those. Just
What do you have selected as your printer?
no, I don't even get that off.
So different printers have different paper sizes. Obviously, for submitting to our large format printer there, we're going to have a lot more paper options since it can take paper that's 42 inches wide.
Yeah, I need US letter. Mr. Brandon, I don't have the page set up.
Okay, mine did.
Yeah, it's still not showing me US letter.
So if you go to File here, you have this Page Setup Manager.
Oh yeah.
when we make our things, are we supposed to make all of it and then do that? Like our drawings?
What we're doing now is we're kind of creating a new template that you'll use from now on.
Stuff on this now instead of
Well, here, so now I'll show you what happens next. So now I go and I'm going to go back to my model space here, and I'm going to draw my top of my telephone pole again. And now I'm going to go back to my paper space because I'm now ready to print it. Where's my telephone pole? Well, remember how we deleted our viewport? We need to make our viewport again. So I'm going to go MView. And we want our video, and a lot of students mess this up. We want to have our viewport basically just take up this blank box, this rectangle right inside here. So my viewport is going to be from this point here and not all the way to the bottom. A lot of students go all the way to the bottom. I don't know why. We just want to go up above our title block at the bottom there. So you can see here my viewport doesn't extend beyond this bottom line here into our text here at the bottom.
So then we can go back to model and move on to pizza.
Yep, so you'll still continue to draw in your model space, and the nice thing about this is now you can choose, I can zoom in and out doing different scales here, and it's still going to print nicely on my 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper.
So should we save this as a template?
You should.
As the same MN template?
Yep, so we're just going to take this and overwrite our millimeter template.
Wait, why is your like your dash line is not in the same place as mine?
My,
Like my template is outside of the dash line.
uh,
Oh yeah, Mr. Brenner.
yep.
How do you center this thing?
Okay. All excellent questions. So a couple things. I do want your viewport somewhat nicely centered in your paper. So there's a couple ways we can do that. We can draw some. I can draw a line, say that way, and then another line this way.
We can't snap those.
Why not?
Because, well, not those. I mean, we can't snap the dash lines. So it's not perfect.
That is true. This is a very, very rare opportunity.
I don't understand because I can't keep. I don't US.
Metric or English?
This is going to be all metric.
Wait, hey, why?
Mr. Banner?
Okay, so I'll do it again here. If you can delete your viewport.
I haven't made a view.
Ah, okay. What have you got so far?
No, like my.
Wait, new viewport. I don't even have that. I don't have my viewport. I can't make it. Wait, Mr. Banner.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because then it's not gonna print that, right? It's like gonna go out.
File.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking of something. That's their phone. And for example,
Okay. So I have my template roughly centered in my page here. And then we're going to add a viewport. So I'm going to hit M view is the command to add a viewport. And I'm just going to go from my edge of my template here, going down to the bottom here. Now, a few things that are can get kind of confusing here. So right now, I'm not currently editing my viewport. So when I zoom in, it's zooming in and out on my entire page. See how that works? Piece of paper really small, piece of paper really big. Okay, once I double click inside my viewport, now I'm editing inside my viewport. Now when I zoom, now it's actually zooming the scale of my viewport in and out. So something that often happens is students zoom in really close. Now they double click. Now I'm zooming in and out of my viewport. But where's my piece of paper? I can't zoom out of my paper. And I don't know. There's probably some command for this. I haven't been able to find one. The only way that I've figured out a way to zoom out is to lock your viewport. To lock it down here. Now I've locked my scale. Now when I zoom out, it's actually going to zoom out my paper all the way. Then I can unlock it and zoom in a little bit. So typically what we'll do is when doing a drawing, we will come up with some kind of scale that we're going to be working in. So for today's assignment, it's a scale of 1 to 1. So I'm going to take my viewport, I'm going to go 1 to 1, and then I'm just going to lock it. So that way as I zoom in and out, I'm not going to change the scale of my viewport.
I can't make a new view.
What happens when
I don't have any view.
Oh, you already have a number of viewports there.
Then what do I use?
Another problem people usually do is they'll have multiple viewports on top of each other. That's another common issue. We should normally be working with one viewport typically. And then another thing is when we title stuff, quite often we want to title it and place that text on top of our viewport, not actually in our model space. So when we go to title something, I'm going to do a dtext. I'll draw something right here. Height, so. So I've drawn my title here, and my title exists separate from my viewport. So imagine it as a thin layer. You can see I can move it outside my viewport because it was never in my viewport. So the nice thing about that is, I can make adjustments to here. I can move this around, and my title is going to stay in one place. So you just kind of mentally need to keep track of what's inside your viewport and what's on top of your viewport.
Wait, how do you get out of the thing where like you zoom in?
So if you've zoomed in too close and now you're kind of trapped inside, what I do is I click on lock to lock your viewport. So see where my mouse is? And then now you can zoom out. You should be able to zoom out.
Oh, I see.
There you go.
How do you fix the
There's probably a command. If anyone else can figure out a better way of zooming out, I'm sure there is one. I've just never taken the time to learn it.
how do you
Scaling.
wait, J Remy.
So that's pretty much it. What you'll want to do now is, once you're confident that you've done everything correctly, clean up your viewport, clean up your template, and you're just going to want to save this as your new millimeter template. So I'm going to go save as. I'm going to select for file type template, and I'm going to call this my millimeter template. It'll ask you to save. It'll say it already exists. Do you want to replace it? I'm going to say yes. It's going to ask me English or metric, so we're dealing with millimeters, so that's metric. And then a template description, which I'll just leave blank, but you got to hit enter here in order to save it. Any questions on that? Excellent.
You select all of it.